You don't get fever, go into a hospital and come out with losing all your limbs.
So the first amputation happened in your
Left hand. I was at home. I felt like a sharp shooting pain in my shoulder. The rest of this just fell off.
It just fell off.
Yeah. Then in September, then I went ahead and amputated both my legs. I painted my toenails a bright purple. I wanted my legs to go out in style. I was lying and I knew there was this lady there. She's like, what happened? I said dowry harassment. And become an international athlete, I think, is a decent enough thing to happen. A para athlete is an athlete in itself. They are taking part in a sport and they need to be recognized for that. We're not here to inspire you.
For our guest today, I have written 4 lines, and I hope my guest likes it. This is the first time I'll be reciting in front of the guest herself. चारों अंग कटे, चारों अंग कटे, पर तुम्हारी हिम्मत ना टूटी.
Wow, 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 wow.
जिंदगी हर हाल में, जिंदगी हर हाल में हंस के जियो. शालिनी तुम इस जज्बे की मिसाल हो अनूठी.
Wow, 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 wow.
Did you understand?
Say it? Yeah,
Did you understand this line?
I did. It's not that bad.
Shalini, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very, very good, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I really hope I do justice to your time, and especially after such a high energy talk that you did this morning.
Yeah.
So keeping the responsibility on me to
Yes.
keep the energy alive.
Yes.
Let me straight away start with asking you, how was your life before the infection happened?
I mean, life was good. I don't think I had anything to complain about. I grew up in Bangalore girl. Went to a great school, went to a great college in Bangalore. And Bangalore is absolutely one of the most beautiful cities
Indeed.
to grow up in. We grew up in a time pre-traffic. So it was a time where you could, go for a walk. You could do a lot of things, and so I grew up in the defense area. My father was part of DRDO, so we lived in the quarters. So I had a lot of friends growing up. It's a very small community. It's a very close knit community. So I've always had a lot of friends, whether it's at home or a school. I've had some of my best friends at school and college, and I started working quite early. I finished college and started to work. I lost my brother just when I finished my college. So I wanted to study further, but then, I didn't want to leave my parents away at that point in time. So we kind of decided to stay back and work. And then, we just continued with working. And I did very well with work as well. I was one of the few people that started a career in the BPO space very early in life. So one of the few people that did night shifts, and my neighbors always thought I was up to something seedy because I would leave late in the evening and come back when the milkman came home. So therefore growth happened very early as well, and a success happened as well. So it was a great life, like a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of good times. Not that I don't have now either, but yes, good life.
And about marriage?
Yes, I met my husband when I was working at Emphasis in 2006, and we got married, I think, in 2008, and we've been married since.
Wow. And after marriage, you went to Cambodia for your anniversary.
Not immediately. 4 years I was.
4 years? So you took 4 years to go for a trip with husband?
No. We went different. So every year, like anniversary, we would do trips. So we did
every year
different
you were doing
places.
it. Okay.
Yeah, we did Sri Lanka, we did Goa, we did various places. And then one of the things that I always wanted to do was to do the Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Like it was on my to-do list. Like, so I have Angkor Wat, I have Egypt, I have Machu Picchu. So I have some of these very historical places that I want to kind of cover. And that was one of the places that I wanted to go. And so then on the 4th anniversary, we thought we would do Cambodia. And that was how Cambodia happened.
So what happened in Cambodia?
Nothing happened in Cambodia. It was a great trip. It was it's a beautiful place, and I like I always say, I single-handedly sometimes destroy the tourism, but it's an absolutely gorgeous country, and it has the largest Vishnu temple. It's a huge,
Oh, is it?
and it's built in an absolute perfect square. So construction-wise. And remember, this is built God knows how many years ago. So interesting historically. And I came back and we figured we were pregnant. And so we were kind of happy about that. And then I kind of felt sick. I mean, I was feeling tired and all of that. We kind of put that to the pregnancy, obviously. And then I kind of got very bad and went to the hospital. And that was when we thought it was either dengue or malaria because my platelet count had really dropped. And of course, it was then it was an infection that I caught in Cambodia, and it comes from dog ticks.
Okay.
I do like dogs, and I did pet a lot of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it could be that, or it could also be that because I was already pregnant, my immunity might have been low, and it's just a freak thing I feel today in retrospective.
So you kept guessing what's going on. So you thought it's
We
because
thought it
of
was dengue,
pregnancy
and that was
earlier, dengue.
First it was
Okay.
pregnancy, then we thought it was dengue, and when I went into the hospital, we were pretty sure that it was. I just was getting into the ICU to kind of get my platelet count increased and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And from there, I went into a coma for the next 8 days.
Okay.
I had a multi-organ failure. My heart stopped twice, I think, and I was in a life support system. I don't think I was meant to make it at all, and I don't think any of the doctors thought I would make it as well. Like even today when I go to the hospital, they would all be like, "Oh, you're still alive." But I was that patient that they would bring students and whatever and show like, this is the person, this is very different. So at one point I wanted to charge them money for it, but like, that
The
didn't work.
UPI label on the t-shirt
No, at that time UPI label
was not there.
not
Okay.
there. Not
Which
there.
year was this, Shalini?
This was 2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah. But I survived it for whatever reasons. And when I did wake up, all my limb extremities had thrombosed, which basically means it's all your blood capillaries clot. So there's no blood flow, right? Like if you go in the snow, remember like how your feet or thing turned like a dark blue.
Yeah, yeah.
That for me, the difference was it was all four limbs had turned that way.
And you could see that. Were you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I did, I could see them, and I couldn't move. I couldn't feel anything in my fingers or my toes or any of that. Like the leg infection was almost upward, like the ankle and above, and then I had like a lot of swelling in my hands and blisters and infections and all of that, which was pretty painful at that point in time. Yeah.
So at what point in time the doctors could identify the real infection?
So when I was in the ICU for a bit, they were giving me broad spectrum antibiotics because they didn't know what it was. And then the doctor at the hospital then asked my husband in terms of travel history, where we had gone, etc. Because we went in February and I was admitted in the hospital end of March. So pretty much a long
very
gestation
immediate.
period. Yeah. So the bacteria and I lived peacefully for a while. I think this was like a bad breakup. And so then the doctor then went back and asked my husband, and then the Cambodia came up, and then they kind of contacted doctors in Cambodia, gave the symptoms, and that's how then they arrived at this was probably the bacterial infection we had.
And I'm assuming it's a very rare
It is
infection
rare. It
for
is
them
rare.
to
Yes,
have quickly
absolutely.
identify.
Like I don't do anything that is I don't do anything that is very normal, right? Like we're very extreme.
But how was, like, when you got to know of the infection and what
Yeah.
it can possibly do, and as I
Yeah.
understand, it was already showing up very strongly.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind? How were you dealing with
No, like see, that's the beauty of this whole thing, right? Like so I knew I was unwell, I was tired, I went to the hospital, and then my memory is blank.
it?
I have few visuals from when I'm in my coma, and I honestly till date I don't know if those are dreams or if that is me actually having gone upstairs and come down. Like it's kind of bizarre if I talk about it actually, because so I have like, I mean obviously like through the I have this one image where I knew like in the coma somewhere that there was a nurse sitting next to me holding my hand and praying or the rosary. I don't know who she is, and I don't know why she felt had the need to pray for me, but I'm very thankful that she did. The other kind of memory that I have is where I kind of know I'm going somewhere, right? And in my head, see, I'm a very logical, rational person. So in my head, I think everything that happened to me, I didn't experience it because I was logically, rationally kind of figuring out what was happening. So when I was in, I kept thinking like, okay, I am sick, so they're taking me by flight somewhere. So it felt like I was on a flight, and I could hear noises, right? I could hear my husband's voice, and I could hear the doctors and nurses. So I'm thinking like we're flying in an entourage to another country. And then I remember being in a place where there was I mean, this is so cliche, right? But a place that was just so much of white light. Okay.
It's very filmy.
Yeah, very
The way I'm
filmy,
getting-
huh? Which is why I don't talk about it. But anyways, so I'm thinking like, wow, abroad के hospitals बहुत clean है, right? And yeah, and I'm thinking like I did treatment abroad and I came back, because when I did wake up, and like when we were coming back, I'm thinking about my passport, right? And I'm thinking like I can't show my passport, so I wonder how they're gonna stamp it. And then I remember kind of like the doctors and nurses, or again, I don't know if this is a figment of my imagination, but someone saying that no, we'll just stamp everybody on her passport.
Huh?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, like let's
okay.
yeah, this I'm in a coma. Can we give me some credit? And so when I did wake up, I'm asking my husband, where did we go? And then he's saying, we went to Cambodia. And I'm like, no.
Uske baad.
Where did we go after that? And then he's like, nowhere. I said, get me my passport. Because
Yeah.
in my head, I'm thinking I can never travel again because everybody's stamp is on my passport. So I honestly, I don't know what that was. So I kind of like slept through the entire thing. And when I did wake up, nobody told me what had happened either. So I moved to the ward. So when I woke up, in my head, I'm thinking it's the previous day in the hospital and the next day. And I remember giving this big yarn to my doctor to say that I don't understand why you have somebody with just fever in the hospital for ICU. You need to understand and use your resources better. And the doctor just smiled, and I didn't know what was happening, right? Because I'm just thinking that. And I moved to the ward. And much later was when my family told me that everything that had happened. And my response, and like I was on this whole hookup and machine and drama, and I was like, why didn't anybody take a picture? And they're like, are you crazy? But yeah, so I didn't like. I think I slept through the worst periods in my life, and I have no memory of it, which is good. And when I did wake up, I think I did notice that it was infected, and I had a psychiatrist at the hospital tell me that there's a very likely chance, because my family didn't know how to say that to me, so they thought it was better that the doctor kind of say that to me. And he said that, you're going to lose, we might have to amputate all your limbs. And I said that, I'm sure you're doctors and you'll have figured this out, and I'm sure you'll come up with the right decision. I'm me being very
The
gyani with the
corporate
doctor. Of
lines.
course. Humko kya hai? And because I honestly didn't think it was going to happen in retrospective, right?
Yeah,
Because I don't think you don't get fever, go into a hospital and come out with losing all your limbs.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen to you. And like I said, it always happens to somebody very vague in the newspapers that you read about. So we went back home and we tried different therapies. We were borderline quackery, I feel, at some point as well, because and I think that's the thing about hope. And sometimes I even sometimes I'm going to go off topic, but this is sometimes I understand when people go to these babas and all of that, and we wonder, they get duped, and we wonder how did that happen? And I feel that at that point in time, if anyone told us we needed to do anything to get
You
me
would have done
better,
that.
we would have done it. We had Maulvis in my house, we had pastors in my house, we had pujaris at my house. There were, I think everybody had like hundreds of places that they prayed to. So it was, and hope is sometimes, it's a beautiful thing as well, because you're just willing to hope that something would work for this person,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And and that's what we did. Like we tried alternative therapies. I did some oxygen therapy. I did, and then I met this beautiful doctor in Kerala, Swami Nirmalanandagiri Maharaj, and I met him, and the first thing he met me, and he very sweetly he said in Malayalam, "Ellam marum." Ellam marum basically means that you'll be fine. It means everything will change, which I think is, in retrospective, the most beautiful thing you can say to anyone. because everything will change. Whether that happens for the best or not is in your hands, but everything does change. And that was a one line that I lived with for the next 1 year, because he would meet me and he'd say, Ella marum. And we did. At that point in time, then I had dry gangrene. So, which is basically that all your, I woke up one day to all of my limbs smelling. And I didn't know it was coming from me until someone pointed out that it was from me, and that was gangrene, right? And I knew at that point in time that it was not looking good for me. And then with the Ayurveda, the gangrene kind of went away, which was a good sign.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. And then, of course, like I went back to work, taking my calls on my laptop. So the best way to describe my limbs at this point in time is dried wood, because there is zero blood flow in them.
Yeah.
And what happens when you constantly knock on dried wood is that it cracks. So I managed to fracture this one. And then I had to go ahead and amputate this one.
So the first amputation happened on your left.
Left hand. That's
Okay.
in March 18th, 2014. August 25th. I was at home. I was talking to my husband's brother. I felt like a sharp shooting pain in my shoulder, and the rest of this just fell off.
It just fell off.
Yeah, like plop. And I didn't know that could happen, and none of us could. And I think there was one of my husband's brother was like, "Let's stick it in the fridge. We might be able to fix it back on." But yeah, then the doctor came on and they did the dressing, and we knew that was no point with that. And then we were like, okay, like there's no point in waiting anymore, right? Because the miracle that we were hoping for
It's not going to happen.
is not going to happen, or it can be the miracle that you want it to be. So we went ahead. Then in September, then I went ahead and amputated both my legs. September 18th. And my interesting story of that is that I painted my toenails a bright purple the previous day of my surgery. I wanted red actually, but we couldn't find red, so we did purple, because like I wanted my legs to go out in style. And I think the nurse didn't know what to do with it, and she was like, should we remove it, should we not? And the doctor just said, just let her be.
Let her be.
Yeah, and then September 18th, we had both of the legs amputated. The doctor wanted to do one at a time, and I said, don't be ridiculous. I'll
Don't
deal
be
with the
unfair
pain.
to either or.
Yeah, no, because he was saying it was going to be very painful, etc. And I said, no, we'll get it out of the way. I mean, it was excruciatingly painful, but then they also give you like these great painkillers, which you can just kind of like
As if it's just
yeah,
didn't
like
happen.
it's beautiful. And then 3 days they give you, and then they kind of shut it down, and they say like, deal with the pain. But yeah, and then I also had to like get this one, because my hands were bent in like this, so they had to be straightened out. So I had this surgery as well done. The tendon had to be kind of restructured, so we did that as well. So I was bandaged all over, but yeah, but
Did you go on the grass for a walk before you send?
no, I
final
couldn't.
bye?
I couldn't be on my feet.
You couldn't be on your feet.
I was
It
bed. Yeah, like
okay.
on for 2 years I was in bed, because I couldn't get up. Like
So for 2 years you were on bed.
yeah. Because I was physically carried around, like from bed to another bed, or if bed to car to go to the hospital. So I had an army of men that were ready to pick me up and carry me around at any points in time. Yeah.
Wow. So from here, and it's 2 years from the
Pretty
infection was
much.
detected
So
to the
I felt
point.
sick end of March 2012, and my amputation was in September 2014. So about a year and 6, 7, 8 months, I think. And then I think in November was when I started to wear my prosthesis. Like I went in to get my prosthesis fitted and stuff like that. And I was like, Chris, New Year ke din hum chalenge, party ke
Chalenge.
din. Yeah. And my prosthetist was like, no, it's a really bad idea because your leg is not ready. And I was like, I said, no, I have to do this and all of that. So, but they were very kind. Otterbock was very kind. They fitted my legs for me, and I did go for my New Year party.
I'm proud
Like
of you.
out of the
Super.
car, and I walked like 10-15 steps, and then I'm like I should have listened to my prosthetist. But like that show was important, right? Like
Yeah,
we looked good,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody, and all my friends and everybody that meant anything was there. So it was absolutely beautiful. And then I think maybe 15 minutes and then we removed the leg. But, the entry, we had like that Rajnikant entry, and we were very happy about it. Yeah.
One question I would like to ask you is, when you resumed work,
Yeah.
or I would say resumed the world at large after the amputation, did you feel people were not skilled enough to ask you question? People are not sure how to talk to you.
Like in an interview or like
No,
generically?
generic at large. People did not know how to have a conversation with you in your pain or in that condition that you are. Did you feel like that people wanted to have that conversation but could not have?
I think like to be fair, and I'll give people the credit. Like, if you met somebody that has gone through a really big trauma, I think all of us would be wary to kind of question them and talk
Yeah,
to them,
yeah.
right? We always would tread very carefully with our conversations because you don't want to hurt them. And I think that is what has happened. And I feel like sometimes when people warm up and then they're okay to ask you the questions, which I think is nice, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Um, uh, and I feel like it's nice because, it opens up about your disability, what you have gone through and all of that. So I don't really think people, no, I don't think so. But I think people have made like funny statements sometimes, right? I had this person at work once who had a ligament tear, right? And she meets up with me and she says, I've been thinking about you this past 3-4 weeks. And I'm like, what happened? She said, no, I've had a ligament tear. And, I was thinking, my God, what did you go through? And I'm like, woman, you went through a ligament tear in my head. And I'm like, sure, like, I don't think it's that bad. She said, no, it is bad. And I'm like, whoa. So I just think it's sometimes that, right? Like when you equate your ligament tear to my amputation, I'm like, dude, seriously. So I think it's that sometimes. And sometimes I think it's just about, like, I feel like people sometimes feel they have the right to know what happened to you. That irks me a lot. I think it's not about what you say, but it's about how you say it. I've had, like when I go for walks and stuff like that, I've had elderly grandmothers who have just stopped, had their heart on their hand and say, Beta, what happened? But I've had people who've turned around and said, Kya hua? Like, what? Aise kaise hua? And you're like, dude, like, I don't owe it to you. And there's also this very Indian thing again, which when you would walk and they would do the whole
Taras.
right? I think all of that used to irk me a lot. But today I just feel it comes from a place of absolute ignorance. It comes from a place where they don't have a reference point, where they haven't seen somebody flashing their legs and hands and walking around the road or going for a run or going to the shops or having a good time with them. I've had people that have texted me on Facebook when Facebook expected to say, I saw you at this club and I was supposed to feel sad, but you were having such a good time. So there is this expectation that because you're a person with a disability, you are supposed to be sad, you are supposed to be sober, you are... it's like my friends, like we went on a holiday to Thailand and we're sitting, so, we're visa on arrival, we're sitting in the wheelchair because my friends insist I sit on a wheelchair because we get through everything faster. And there was this other lady in the wheelchair who got through before us. And my friend turned around and said, "Tu has ke kyun baiti hai? Can you sit sad? So, we can get through this faster." So I think it's just that. The expectation sometimes is just that you have to lead a very sad, mournful life. But I also feel that if I am who I am today is a function of the privileges that I have had.
Yeah.
I lived in a city. I've had access to prosthetics. I am educated. I have a corporate job. I have financial freedom. I have a great family support. This is not something everybody else has. And if I am successful today, it is the fact that I'm privileged. If I was Shalini that lived in a village or in a rural area in India, I do not think I would be successful. So, privileges are there, and I think we should call out it and we should acknowledge it.
Yeah. Shalini, as I see, humor and friends played a huge role
Absolutely.
in your life. Let's talk about that.
I mean, what's the point if you can't laugh at your own self?
Yeah.
And I think humor has a way to make situations easier, right? Like I've had some of the most funniest. When I when I was really sick, right? Like my limbs and all, like it's like black in color, right? It almost looked like a burn victim. So we would go to the hospitals, and obviously, people would look. And Indians are very curious. They want to know what happened, why it happened, how it
But
happened.
why Indians only? I think across the world. It would
No,
be
I mean,
different.
we're unsubtle about it. I think they're more subtle about it.
So they'll give a stare. Is that
Yeah.
it? Okay. Scan and notice.
Yeah, scan and notice. And I think, like, I don't think I've ever been abroad and anyone is come up and asked me to my face what had happened. But in India, it has happened a lot more. So I was lying, and I knew there was this lady there who was staring and looking, and I knew that she was going to come and ask me a question. So she came up, and then she's like, what happened? So I said cylinder burst. And then she's like, yeah. She's like, yeah. I said,
Rave parties are such.
no,
What to do,
I
yeah?
said dowry harassment. And then
Prashant.
she's like, yeah. Then she's like, huh. And then what happened? I said, no, everybody's in the jail. And then she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She said, husband. I said, husband is also in jail. And my husband's standing there. So then she's like, who's this? I said, he's my brother. Then she's like, okay. And then she gives me a whole speech like, don't leave them. Take them to jail. I said, of course. So I think it's about that, right? Like, I think you can have fun with it. And, I was in a hospital once, and the guy next to me had a, I think he was playing cricket, and he had a ball that hit his eyebrow, and it cut. Right, so I'm in the next. So it's a screen, and I can hear this happen. And the guy next, so I think he was there. An intern that had to stitch. So what the intern did was, he shaved his eyebrow off. Okay, and the main doctor comes in, and the main doctor is like, why do you shave his eyebrow? You do know eyebrow takes long time to grow. And I'm laughing, and then I'm like, my procedure was over, but I said, Prashant, let's wait. I want to see this guy with one brow. So then we waited, we saw him, we laughed at him, and then went. So I think sometimes it's just that, right? Like, you can have fun with it, and life's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from this condition to thinking of running, how did that transition happen?
Oh, I didn't want to run. Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah. And you were lifted around, you were cared and pampered so well. Why would you run? But why
No,
did this
I mean,
thought happen?
I wanted, like, once I wear my prosthetics, then I wanted to be independent, right? Like,
Yeah.
because you're walking around, and I wanted to do some of the most basic things in life. I had put on a lot of weight. Actually, I think it was sheer vanity, because I didn't like the person I looked like when I saw in the mirror. My clothes didn't fit. And I think it goes back to how women really are so tough on ourselves and our bodies. Right? Like, we never give ourselves leeway for the fact that we've gone through immense trauma. Right? Like, you would notice that, right? Like, who was that? These actresses, right? They have a baby, and then the media is all like, oh my God, she's put on so much weight. And I
Yeah,
think that's so ridiculous. And I think, and as women, we've been trained to kind of think like that, where we would be very hard on ourselves and our bodies, right? So, and I was hard on myself. And I just wanted to lose weight, actually. We went to a couple of gyms, and the poor guys didn't know what to do, right? They can't give me weights. They can't put me on a cycle and all of that. And we happened to meet a friend of mine when we went to eat biryani. And he said that, listen, he had a knee injury, and he was going to a coach. And he said, like, why don't you just meet him and see? So we went to KSLTA in Bangalore, and we met my coach for the first time. And he was like, I have never worked with anybody like you, but come over, we'll see what we can do. And he works with professional athletes, elite athletes. So, I don't even come in the gamut of that. And he tells me now that he was extremely that day he was like poker faced and all of that. But like, he had his own trauma, I think. And then I went in the next day, and I think we just walked. I think the first day he said, just walk. And he was just like, what are you standing? Walk. And I'm like, oh, damn. Like, and I like the fact that he didn't care about the disability. He
Yeah.
didn't give me any leeway for the fact that I was disabled. And he said the first day you'll have to do 3 rounds at the stadium. And I was huffing and panting, and I'm looking at him, and he's like, "No, you're going to finish it." And that was refreshing. And I liked the fact that I was being pushed. And then it was just a whole lot of walking, I think, in the first 1.5 years or so. And then somewhere in between, we kind of figured we could run, and we were very excited about it. And so was coach. And I hadn't got my blades or anything like that.
Oh, that was
At the
without
point,
blades?
yeah, on these normal legs that I was running.
Okay.
And then coach said that, I think 2015, he said, let's do of the 5 kilometer TCS run. I said, yeah, we'll do. And then I went away on a holiday to America. I came back and he said, next year we'll do 10 kilometers. And I thought, okay, banda gaya hai, there's no way this is going to happen. And I hope, at some point he was going to realize that this is a really bad idea and it is impossible. And then one day, I think on a Saturday, he called me in and he said, we're going to try it in the stadium that day. That's 25 laps around the Kantirwa Stadium.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to 16, 17, and I'm like, I want to give up. And the man just won't give up. He was with me through that entire race, and he said, we're going to finish.
Awesome.
And we did finish. I hated it. I hated every moment of it. But I loved how I felt within, because if I could do that, then I could do with anything else in my life, was what I felt. And then the prosthetic guys kind of called around that time. They had blades that had come through, and they were looking for someone to try it on.
Okay.
So they usually they were very wary about giving it to me as well, because I'm a quadruple amputee. So there's no way I can even break my fall.
Yeah, correct.
So then we said, yeah, come on. So we wore the blades and we were very excited. And then, of course, the whole media happened, and, ProCam, TCS run, and everybody was like, oh, whatever.
This was which year, Shalini?
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they said that, and then, of course, camera, newspapers. And I think till that moment, I didn't see the big deal with it. Or neither did any of my friends or family see the big deal with it. Because for them, it was Charles that was running, right? And then the lenses changed, that it is somebody who's a quadruple amputee that's running, right? And I was on the front page of Times.
I remember that. Yes.
And then we ran the race. We were terrible at it. I wanted to give up at the 7 kilometer mark, because I just didn't have it in me. It was extremely humid, and actually my blood pressure had really dropped that day, but I didn't know. And I remember telling coach that, listen, I don't think I can finish this. And he said, no, we will finish this. So he said, it's okay. We will run, we'll walk, we'll do this. We were cheered along by random strangers. I had one uncle in the park that took out one cover, and he gave me badam and kishmish, and he said, beta, run, finish it. So I think it was just random kindness that kind of got me. I think I dragged myself over the last 1 kilometer or so, and then I went in, we went in because we had the whole VIP space, and all my friends and family were there too. I think all my friends were waiting to watch me run and come and finish at the end and wave at them. And I was like that. And then I was feeling very weird after the race. And it was all the blood pressure low, but I'm just thinking that I'm very hungry. So I did what I do very well. I ate. I ate like no man's business, and everybody fed me. And then I kind of got worse, but I wasn't speaking too much, and I was dazed. Then they rushed me to the hospital. And then I guess they had to put me on drips and stuff like that. Then I got up, and I was feeling good. I met the doctor. The doctor was like, I ran with you. It was such an honor to run with you and all of that. And then I threw up at the doctor. And and then I felt better. So that was my first race. And then after that, I was like, damn, I took 2 hours to run it. And I knew I could do better. So then we ran the next year, and we did it in 1 hour and 35.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is that your best timing?
Yeah, I ran only 2 races. So, and I switched, I bought new blades, and we did all of that. And then we kind of said that, running 10 kilometers is kind of crazy. So we'll do lesser time. So we thought we'd be very intelligent, बहुत smart, 100 meter sprint karenge. But we didn't know that we were getting into a worse situation. And then I think I ran my first nationals in Haryana, actually. And that was my first one. And I came in third the first time I ran.
Okay.
So like we were like, okay, like that's not so bad. But then we were still trying to understand para at that point in time. How do we run? We had no idea about the classification. There's just so much. It's like this absolute dearth of information, right? So we had to like kind of figure out a lot of things. How do we start? How do we do all of that? And then I think in 2019, yeah, 2017 and 2018, we did a lot of races internally in India. And then we said 2019 we went to, so that's when we figured that you have to get a classification done for Paralympics, which basically means they would look at your disability and classify
You.
what you have to be. So we went to China for our classification, and there was also a race in China.
Sorry, so classification, you cannot get classified
No,
in
India,
India?
because there's nobody authorized in India to do. So it's like a process. You need.
Even today?
I think today we probably do have people, but if I am not wrong, most people still go abroad. Like, I don't think we have like a setup to kind of do
Oh,
it,
is
is
it?
my understanding. I could be
Okay.
wrong, and forgive me for
Okay,
that.
okay.
But as far as I know, you have to go abroad for it. So I went to China, and New Blades, I was in form. I was like, okay, come on. You got to wear the India t-shirt, India jacket, and like very proud moment. And I had my new blades. Now, the thing was, I got these new blades and I was very happy. And now the thing with prosthetics is that you can become tall.
Because of the structure of the blade.
No, even these legs, right? Like, you can become tall. Like, I was 4'11"
you
all
can
my life.
become-
Yeah, I
okay.
was 4'11" all my life.
Okay.
When prosthetics happened, I said, why? I will be 5'3". I will be 5'4".
Acha.
तो मैंने अपने आप को, because how long are you going to take short jokes, no? You can tell it's time to make short jokes. So we got, and when the blades came through also, I was like maybe like a 5'6". Like I was
wow.
quite tall.
That's
And
Deepika Padukone.
correct,
Right,
yeah. And at that point in time, what had also happened was that a lot of double amputees were getting bigger prosthetics because it gave them an advantage to run, because your
Longer
stride
legs.
length
Yeah.
increases.
Okay.
So then the Paro committee at that point in time said that, wow, people are cheating, we need to stop this.
Correct.
So then when I went to China was when for the first time they were kind of doing, it's called the MASH, which is your maximum allowable standard of height. So they do like a math of measuring your hip to knee ratio versus your elbow to toe, and there's a math that they do, and they come up with what your optimal height can be.
Okay.
And they came back and said, अपनी औकात पे आओ 5'1" के ज़्यादा तो हो नहीं सकता है. So they didn't. So I went to China for the first time for an international race, and I wasn't allowed to run.
And that was Asian Games.
No, it's not. It's like, so a lot of the countries have their own para competitions.
Okay.
Right? So, China holds one, Thailand holds one, Dubai has one, Sharjah has one. So different countries have different competitions, and you can go. It's open to the world. So we went to China, and my first outing, and I'm not even allowed to run.
So that was the first ever such tournament. You went there all through the science and you were disqualified.
Absolutely.
So would we call it a disqualified, or
Yeah,
you
did
were
not
not allowed?
start. Did not start.
Did not start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're not allowed to start,
You're not
because you
allowed to
don't
start.
meet, unless I was able to reduce my height in any form or fashion. So then I was questioning the universe that what's going on, right? Like, do you even want me to run or not? So we said, okay, Abhi, we changed. Then we went ahead, changed the prosthesis, bought a new one.
And all that happened while you were in China.
No,
You
we
came
came back
back.
to
Okay.
India,
Haan,
right?
because-
We came back.
yeah.
And then we like, chalo, next year to hum faad denge.
Yes.
Right?
Ah.
And then 2020 COVID happened.
Oy.
And then we ran for a whole year on the roads because it was the only option that we had.
Yeah.
And then we said 2021, there was a competition in Dubai. So we said, fine,
Let's go for it.
let's go for that.
Mm.
And great form. I was running very well. All of that. I am in Dubai. I'm at the start line. I'm running with, I think most women, two of the women I think were above knee amputees, single legs. And I think there were two of the women who were below knee single leg amputees. So I was the
Okay.
only double amputee in there. So I'm still thinking like, I've got a chance. So we start the race. At the 80-meter mark, I do a check. I'm in third place. So I'm still thinking, not bad, bronze at least, right?
Yeah.
And then the 80-meter mark, I trip and fall. I fall, and not just like fall, like I fall.
Like
And I,
on
yeah,
your
like
face.
on my face, like that. And then I have blacked out on the stage. On it, like I told you, na, मैं कुछ
Ordinary तो होता ही
ordinary
नहीं है.
hota nahi hai mere se. So we went there, and then I had to be taken away to the hospital, and apparently, like, I didn't remember much again from that day as well, except that I was telling my friend who was with me, Pramila, that the doctor was very good looking. So I think there was clearly parts of my brain that was functioning in the way that it had to.
So right memory always remains
हाँ,
with you.
correct. And uske baad they moved me to another hospital because they wanted to get a CT of my head, because I wasn't.
You fell on
Yeah,
it,
I
right,
fell
yeah.
off, and I wasn't able to recall. And I kept asking them, did I finish running or not? Because I didn't know I'd run my race. So
Oh.
even till date, I have no memory of the race. I only know it because I've seen the videos of it. So I only remember walking up to the start line, and I have no memory after that. And I feel like maybe it's the body's way of suppressing bad memories sometimes. So then I was like, dude, what's up? Right? Like, do I even need to run or not?
Yeah.
But then we stayed at it. We stayed put with it, and we continued. Then we did Sharjah after that. That was where I did the record of the T62.
Let's talk about that one.
I ran. I didn't win it. So I was like, kind of like, what the hell, whatever. And I came out, and my timing also wasn't what I wanted it to be. I felt like I could have done much better. I think I ran like an 18.3 or something like that. And I was running the 17 mark. So I should have done better. And then suddenly when the results came out, it said under Shalini Saraswati, new Asian record. And we're like, oh, wow. Okay. So we were happy about that. And then Asian Games happened. After that, then we kind of
This is
qualified.
which year now?
I think Sharjah happened in 2023. And the same year, basis that and what we had ran at the trials, etc., we
Yeah.
managed to go. We qualified for
So
the
you
Asian
qualified
Games.
automatically.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, that and what we ran in India, right?
In
so that
India,
also
okay.
counts. So I
Okay.
ran at Bhubaneswar that year, and I came in second for the nationals. And I ran pretty decently at my trials as well. So I think all of that combined together.
Okay.
And I think also the para committee also was like seeing me like, ye akeli bhagti rehti hai blades mein." Because I'm the only blade runner in
Yeah.
India, right?
Yeah.
There are no other women runners. There are male runners. Even among the male runners, I'm among all of India, I'm the only double amputee that runs.
Okay.
So I think they were also like, chalo usko jaane do, kuch to, let her go. So we went to the Asian Games and we ran around this time, actually, October. Yeah, this time. What's the date? No, I hadn't still as yet gone. So we were prepping for Asian Games this year. So that was beautiful. Like, it was absolutely. I mean, I managed to finish my race for the first time in my life without
And this
falling.
was after 4 years, correct? So COVID, then first attempt you fell
Yeah,
down.
19,
Second,
20, 21, 22,
22,
23.
23.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I started running in 17, 18. Yeah. So, yeah. And that was beautiful, right? Like, I ran again with 2 single leg amputees and 1 girl with slightly inward legs.
Legs, yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a great run again. I think I could have done better. Like,
Is it you always thinking of challenging yourself? Because
no,
I
like
hear
I
you
know,
saying,
I'm saying from the perspective that I know what my timings are.
You would have timed better in
I
your
have timed
preparation.
better in
Okay.
India. I have timed better in India. Like when I ran at Bhubaneswar, I did a 16.8. So that's pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. And at the Asian Games, I did an 18 some shit. So, it's, so I could have done better. I was paranoid that time so what had happened was I was seeing the race the previous day, and a lot of the Indians got out of the race on the foul for the foul start. Because even if you move a little when you start, they immediately
Even a movement is not
is not allowed. And the problem with me is that because I'm on blades, I have a larger tendency to shake. Because
you have to balance it.
I have to balance
Yeah.
it. So I was so paranoid that I will go all the way up to China, knowing my own track record, that I will go up there.
ये थोड़ा हिल गई थी.
मैं हिलूंगी. And actually what did happen was when On Your Mark said go happen, I did move a bit. And I thought I was out of the
Gay,
race.
हाँ.
But they didn't call out the
Thank
foul.
God. Yeah.
So I waited, and then I'm like,
Bhago.
oh shit, and then I ran. So I wasted like a good second and a half there, or
Oh
I
my
could have
God.
gotten much better.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah.
How did it feel? I mean, claiming to that record and after 4 years of such story behind.
Like, I really wish I had won. I really, really wish I had won. It would have been like the proper cherry on the cake, I feel.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? I mean, look at it. I mean, there are a lot of things that did not work in my favor. Being a quadruple amputee, I don't have the support of my
Yeah.
hands. I was running with kids who are in their 20s. A lot of that happened. But I also think, like, for my own credit, I like the fact that, I come from an absolutely non-sporting background.
Non-sporting, yeah.
I have zero sporting genes in my body. Like, we're artists, we're singers, we're dancers, we're painters, we're all of that in the family. But sports, zero. Like in school, मैं sports करती थी, but you're part of Blue House and I ran, and you ran not because you were the best, but because you're the best of the worst, right? And
Yeah.
then we were part of volleyball team. And the reason for us, I went to a girls only convent, so we went into the volleyball team also because that was the only way we could have met other boys.
Boys.
From schools. So I mean, our logic of any kind of sports were kind of weird. So for me, from going from non-sporting background to go through something as traumatic as what I did, to then to be able to turn it around and become an international athlete, I think is a decent enough thing to happen. Yeah.
We are hugely proud of what you have dealt with, Shalini, and the way you have dealt with all the subsequent challenges that kept coming your way. Because the story seemingly deserves a much happier milestones coming in sooner than it ever can. But when I'm listening to your story, it's like a climax
my
ke
movie
baad
would
one
be-
more climax, one more climax.
No, my movie
ये गिरती पड़ती रहती है.
my movie will be like a very comedy kind of movie, I think, if it's ever made, because like wo climax aayega and then the climax doesn't happen. Then there's another climax and that doesn't happen. So yeah.
Yeah, but in this journey, who supported you most?
I don't think I think it would be absolute injustice if I said there was one person behind it, because I think it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone in my family, whether it's my mom and dad, my sister, my brother-in-law, my niece, my husband, my friends, without all of them, my coach, coach's wife, Pramila, all of the kids at the stadium, a lot of the para committee of India. I think there've just been so many people
Yeah.
that have wanted me to do well. And I feel it's all of that. And I don't think I can give success to any one person. I feel that I would have been incomplete if that had happened in any
Yeah.
form or fashion.
Yeah.
But I definitely think like I would give a little more credit to my parents. Because, yeah.
So we are talking about support, correct? But in this whole journey,
Yeah.
and in the society we stay, something very specific I would like to ask, which is about how has been your experience around gender roles, the way society looks at in
Yeah.
your journey?
I mean, clearly, I think, see, like when you're a woman with a disability, and I think one of the few questions that people always ask me is that, are you still married? Right? And the question is like, and if you say you're married, then the next following question is, was he married to you before or did he marry you after? And if you say he was married to you before, and then the question is, he still lives with you, because then he automatically gets status to God, right? Because he has such a big heart and he did not leave you, kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking that if I'd gotten married after this had happened, it would have still been like, oh my God, with all of this also the guy chose to marry you. And it's interesting, right? Because like when I go for talks and stuff like that, and there have been times that I've gone with Prashant along with me, and there have also been other people with disabilities on the stage.
On the stage, Haji.
And I think one of the stage, I remember I went with a man who was visually blind as well. And when we came off the stage, Prashant also was there, and this gentleman's wife as well was there. But there were so many people that walked up to Prashant and said, wow, that's so great, you're such a great man, etc. And there was this woman who was sitting there as well, who was married to a person with a disability, but she got no credit for it at all, for the simple fact that women are meant to do it. If and I also feel like if roles were reversed between me and Prashant, right, I would have been expected to stay in the marriage. If I had left Prashant, I don't think I would have been looked upon very kindly. But if Prashant had left me, he would have still been looked at it kindly. You know, I've had people that have told Prashant as well that, does your wife have a sister? Because if that's the case, you should marry her, because then she will look after your wife and she will look after you as well. So I think it's a very interesting perspective in terms of how patriarchy can kind of change the lens of that, right? Like men are given more credit for doing some of the same things that women do. It's the same thing, right? Like when the man washes the bartan, he's like, oh, what a good husband you have, he washes bartan. And here is a woman washing bartan day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
It's expected of a woman. So I think that is definitely there. And also, like, you know, somewhere like people also have an issue that to say that also you don't look after your husband, you don't cook for your husband. And I'm like, dude, like, I can't eat my own food. Forget cooking for him, right? So I just think the expectations and the way we view disability also comes with a patriarchal view. And you know, like, and I think you are more abla lari when you are a woman with a disability than a man, because automatically you become a burden on the system, because nobody's going to marry you off, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a man with a disability, there is still a chance that you might find some poor girl from a poor family who will be willing to get married and look after the person with a disability. So the views are very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twisted, but it exists.
Yeah, and it's very much there. It's very much there. During COVID, when it was about job, you know, the roles at home, me doing all the bartan, bhanda,
Yeah.
you know, is something that I quote more often
Yeah.
than I would talk about other things that I would have done.
Yeah.
And I've seen people appreciating it and, you know, having a recall much more than any other mention to
It's
it.
very clearly, right, like gender roles that the way that are defined today, right? The women are expected today, in today's world, unfortunately, like the women are expected to go to work, but they're still expected to do all the housework as well.
Yeah,
You know, but the men are expected to just go to work. I mean, our expectation out of men are very little, I feel, in today's world, right? If they can do some of the most basic things in life, we're like, wow, well done. But a woman is kind of like working, making ends meet, and I know personally from my own friends that they do it all, they're super women, and they still feel guilty about the fact that they're not a great mother, or they haven't spent enough time with their children, or feel like they haven't done the things that they should for their home, right? Like me and my friend were just talking yesterday as well. Like we were having this reel of this woman, you know, she like every day she shows making these great dishes from scratch for her family. And I'm like, dude. And she was saying that, you know, I was thinking like, I look at her and I feel like, damn, am I doing enough? Maybe I should do this. And I think that's the problem with women, right? Like, we have very high expectations of our own self. And it's the way that we are raised. That, you know, that we have this whole burden of the family honor on our shoulders, of how the family is perceived basis our behavior, and how we perform in the in-laws family. All of that, we're carrying a lot of that. And being raised like that makes you put a lot of pressure on yourself unnecessarily. And with men, we can very clearly just say, you know, they're men. You know, ladke hote hain, say their maturity is low, they mature lesser.
Yeah.
And the expectations are so low. So low.
Also because, Shalini, the way I look at you, you've really dealt with this in a very, how should I say, in a very real way, in a very practical way. What you have dealt with is something beyond gender bias or any kind of a emotion parameter that I would look at. So I think those conversations, beyond a point, I'll be wasting your time asking you all of that stuff. Going back to the sports side of it, and I have 2-3 questions, and myself picking up tennis very late in my age, there are 2-3 things that I have to really ask you. One, how is the scenario for para sports people in India?
Okay.
Do they get enough opportunities right now to go find out how they can train, participate, get the qualification, etc. How would you comment on that?
I think compared to when I started, where we are today is a much better place,
Yeah.
right? Like when I started out, there was very little information. I don't think the Para Committee of India was set up as well as it is today. Today there is accessibility. The website is up. All of the competitions are up. You pretty much have access to the information that you want. So it has definitely made large progress. Can we do better? Of course we can. Of course we can. Do we have the setup within the country to train Paralympians? I would say may not be, because
Yeah.
I think even in my own case, right? Like Coach Ayappa is a brilliant person and he's an absolutely beautiful coach. But even for him, he had to go back to the drawing board to figure out how to train me. And it works very differently. There aren't anybody with that kind of knowledge around there. And whatever that we see today are coaches who are usually training able-bodied persons who are adapting and changing the way. So even in terms of like gyms, forget gyms. Like I'm saying, even if you want to go into a stadium today, it is not the most accessible one for a person with a disability or a wheelchair. So that is a ground reality. I'm saying, and that ground reality not just for the stadium, but like any part of life, right? Like your own studio.
Yeah. Correct.
So I just think we're not structurally there to for people with disability. We're not a country that designs for it at all. Right? It's not part of the design. So and that kind of therefore translates to other parts of life, whether it is sports, whether it is theaters, whether it is whatever. I think the cities today are then to kind of changing and adapting and all of that. So I think para sports is, and I think this year with the hall that they had,
Yes.
I think they got a lot of limelight, and I think we did far better than the able-bodied athletes. The amount of money that was invested in para is much significantly lesser than able-bodied athletes. So I think ROIs were much better. So I think clearly like there is, but I also feel, but still the kind of mileage that they would get is significantly
Media
lesser.
mileage you're talking about.
Yeah, the media coverage, etc. I still feel like, this time around with the Olympics, it was far much better. I did see like there was a bit of coverage, and this time they actually played it on the TV and you could view it on as well. But like I think memory is a little more lesser, right?
It
of
is, it is.
the recall value. Like if I were to ask you who are the people that won,
Yeah.
you might say Sunmit, Antle, and nobody else.
Correct.
So I think the kind of recall that we have is significantly lesser, and I feel like and I also feel like somewhere the imagery that is there also, right? We use the para sports sometimes to evoke inspiration, and I feel that's not a good idea at all, because your para Olympian or a para athlete is an athlete in itself, right? They are taking part in a sport and they need to be recognized for that. We're not here to inspire you. We are good sports people and we're here to play a sport, and that's about it. I think we like to kind of have that whole violin background when you have somebody with a para background, because you want to kind of make it sound mournful and sad and how they rose from the ashes, whatever. And I think it's, in a way, it's to sell as well. But sometimes we just have to accept that it's sports, but you just happen to have a disability and you're in a sport.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis, you're a person with a disability taking part in a sport.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's a
But
difference.
how well connected is the para sports fraternity as such?
I think it's a small community. We all know each other.
Yeah?
Yeah, we pretty much all know each other. Are we all like in contact and WhatsApping each other at all points in time? Not. I think some of us are more connected than the others.
Yeah.
I think when you're belonging to the same, like I know most of the Karnataka athletes, and I know, and because I've been in this space from 2018 onwards, I've gone a lot of competitions. So you're traveling together, you know a lot of people, and you meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that camaraderie is obviously there. But I still think we can do a lot more. We absolutely can do a lot more.
So going back to the media mileage part
Yeah,
of the Paralympics, you think they're becoming a victim of this Instagram inspiration?
I mean, Instagram is that, and I feel, and that's true of anybody, right? Recently, wasn't there a story of a woman who gave away her liver? Let me see that. Young woman who gave up her liver for her mother-in-law's sister or something, and there was this beautiful, somebody thought it was an inspirational post and put out, and everybody then questioned that why did she give her liver to a person at all who was not she was related to. So I think it's a bit of a mix, right? Like today, I mean, unfortunately, we live in a world today where a scroll with 30 seconds that's eyebally catches people's attention. But I also feel that it may not be sustainable. It's short memory. People remember it for that point in time and move on, I feel.
Yeah.
Somebody like me, I think I have stayed in the industry in terms of speaking and all of that for a while now. I think my first talk that I did was 2016. So I've kind of been able to sustain it, and I think I have sustained it maybe because I communicate English speaking. I cater to a particular crowd. I'm funny, so it kind of ticks a couple of boxes for people. So
on this one, especially on the speaking part of it, I always thought of a scenario if the larger athletes or larger athletic community is also given speaking training, and most of other Paralympians, because what happens is the attention spans are going down any which ways, and like you spoke about this whole inspiration porn, it just doesn't allow us to stay on a story for longer.
I'm going to twist this around and ask you,
Please.
why do you want only Paralympians to have a speak communication? Why isn't enabled athletes also being given a communication? Because the able-bodied athletes either don't speak well.
No, I'll talk about it. So we are in India. Look at the number of medals we got the non-Paralympic athletes and look at the Paralympians. So it is tough for us to remember 20 plus names versus just 6 names. Correct? And then what happens? There's the slew of those brand endorsement that happens and the kind of monies. And there is no ratio comparison. Okay, I'll tell you the numbers that a PV Sindhu would command to a Lekha Rao would command. There is no fair judgment altogether. Correct? 2 times Olympics medalist. So it has become so much more important that we think how these stories can be there in our minds for longer. Now, media would do things to make their and on survival also happen. That means brands. So somewhere a self-brand has become so much more important for an individual to come in. So if 1 out of 6 versus 1 out of 25, that itself puts you in a different ratios altogether. So rather than looking at, saying that media has to do this or brands have to do this, how is it that a Paralympian can really invest? And typically it's a sport that happens once in 4 years. So typically 2 Olympics or max 3. It's tough to even think of the 4th one. So coming back to the point personally, and I've seen like my own story since the time I have started writing using ChatGPT and rehearsing those lines, I'm able to sell better. People have started paying me for what I talk. Now, when I look at a Paralympian, it's such a rare moment that has happened that the person got that opportunity to prove himself or herself. And there is a story, correct? If they themselves can be trained better and out there, and we are all content hungry. So I'm talking very
I just
tactically.
feel like, how many sports people do you know that come with great communication?
No, very
Very
few.
few.
Very few.
And I think that is pretty much, whether you're talking about the cricketers of the world, very far and
No,
few.
there also.
Very far
Everybody
and few.
does fireside chat, barring 4 or 5 big names.
Hardly.
All through. Nobody makes a full-fledged
and I think
presentation.
even the likes of Tendulkar and all of them, I think over a period in time they have gotten
Very
better,
clearly.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's a skill set issue, right? Like, I think when you're a sports person, you're not a reader. Right?
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah,
because most of the kids that I know who are into sports don't necessarily study very well. They're not academic. They're into sports.
Yeah.
How do you improve on your communication? Is to be able to constantly read, talk to people, etc. It's not part of the skill set. So, I mean, I hear you, and I'm saying that, maybe we want to kind of do a communication course, but with para athletes, I also think the problem becomes 100-folds, because most of the people that are in the para teams are people that are born with a disability.
Yeah,
so
most
the
of them.
opportunities that they have to go to a normal school, to
Much
be
lesser.
educated, go to have a corporate job,
Correct.
all of that does not come,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
leads to you being confident communicators.
Yeah.
So I just feel that it would be, I mean, you could try it, but I'm not sure how much that would work. And maybe we don't need them to speak in English, right? I just feel like even if they're in Hindi and, you know, they can communicate very well, I feel it should still work. I don't know about, I'm honestly, I'm not sure how that your communication class will work with him. And I feel it's a problem with that, whether you're a para athlete or an athlete
Yeah,
is going to
yeah,
be the same.
yeah.
I feel like I feel I am not, I don't have athletic genes. I have academic genes. I have communication genes, and I happen to be an athlete. So therefore, my
It's
communication
all coming
is good.
together.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Shalini, through this communication, through
Yeah.
this podcast, if I can have a humble submission here, okay?
Huh.
I have
Very
never
humble it has to be.
very humble it has
Huh.
to be. I have never scored first class in my English class, marks, 10th or 12th. Every time 15.9.
You
know,
leveraged ChatGPT in the last few
and
years.
now I'm using ChatGPT,
Huh.
okay? And I'm realizing how much this whole able to speak
Yeah.
or able to convey has really helped me to stay more relevant and for much longer time. You are very well connected with the community you spoke about. You work with Divyanshu Ganatra. Can we work together on helping them telling their story better? It could be Hindi, English, could be Punjabi, Urdu, whatever that it could be. Okay. Can we work together on this one? I would like to offer my time with the community that you are so thick with.
Can I think about it? And
Please do think
respond
about
to you
it.
off camera.
Yeah, and I'll speak to Divyanshu to follow up with you, okay, on this one. And let's do it.
Yeah.
I certainly believe that we have not celebrated our heroes. And when it comes to this community, I think there has to be means and ways of enhancing their livelihood. And getting to Olympics second time or third time is very, very rare occurrence. But if the person has got to the podium finish, I think has to be supported to make better of their
I think this time around they
opportunities.
got a lot more of money than
This time
they,
did they get,
they
yeah,
did. They
they
did. Like
did
all
get.
the winners got some brilliant amount of
Yeah.
money. And I also think like, you know, like, and I feel this is where Haryana, like
Yeah.
Haryana always, even for the Asian Games.
I'm Haryani, by the way.
I know, but they always pay great money to the athletes, which I think is very, very good, right?
Yeah.
Because they spend a lot of money to going to these competitions, etc. And they're not necessarily from very well backgrounds at all. So
Yeah.
I think it's really good because it encourages people to get into the sport.
Yes. Cool. So we have very less time left now.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you just last 2-3
Yes,
questions.
please.
Yes. So and one question that was there in my mind right from the beginning: who inspires you from the athletic world?
Nobody.
Nobody?
I know you. This is a question that somebody wants me to answer, but like,
I wanted a reel to come out of it.
I know, like, I know, like, I'll give you a real material.
Yes, please.
Oscar Pistorius is one of the most decorated double amputees that have run, but he killed his girlfriend. and he's
Yes,
in
I
jail.
know.
So I don't know if you want to make a reel on that. But yeah, no, I mean, in the sporting world, I honestly, I don't know if I've ever looked up at someone and said that, you know, I aspire, because, and also probably because I'm not a sports person. It's not in the genes. I've never followed sports. You know, I care two hoots about sports. Honestly, right? Like I have got into sports now, and that has happened on a whim. It just happened. It wasn't a conscious effort. And once I got myself into it, then I was determined to say, okay, I want to do a good job at it. I don't think there was anybody that I looked up to, but if you think about the sports, and I feel there is, I definitely think Serena Williams.
Yeah.
You know, most decorated athlete, won the most number of Grand Slams. You know, brilliant athlete, and I think she had to break through multiple stereotypes to be where she is today.
Yeah.
So I mean, she is somebody that I feel like, wow, right?
And isn't it unfair that she is never quoted, or I would say
Yeah.
not quoted as much when the GOAT
Yes.
names are being taken?
Yes,
It's
yes,
so unfortunate. I mean,
yes.
she's got more Grand Slams than any of the men around.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
a male world. It's
Male world.
patriarchy everywhere.
Yes. So, Shalini, what will be the one question that you just hate being asked?
What the question you just asked me?
Okay.
What motivates you, and who is your inspiration?
Okay, ठीक है. So I would not ask
thank
any of
you.
that question. What is the question that you would actually like to be asked?
I don't know. I won't know unless it's asked.
कुछ तो दे यार.
I don't know. Like, what's a question I want to be asked? I think maybe, you know, a question that people don't ask is about being a woman. You know, I lost my baby, and I chose not to have children. And I think it's about the perceptions of what we hold as women, right? Like, you should be married, you should have a child. And there is a certain amount of imagery, again, that is involved about a woman being complete as a mother. And all of those societal norms that come along with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, that's a stereotype. And I feel like even though today I don't have a child, I love kids and I have my friends' kids that I love to bits. But I think it's great to also be just the great aunt. You know, it's a great life because you get the love of the children, you can spoil them, and you don't have to be worried if they did potty or if they ate food, right? Or you can spoil them to bits and not be worried about consequences.
Yeah.
And I think that is, we don't talk much about being a good aunt. And I think I've had that, so that's something that I enjoy.
People reach out to you often for seeking confidence, inspiration. when
Yes,
they- yeah.
I wouldn't say inspiration. I think a lot of people who go through really traumatic things do write in and talk to me. Like children, some mothers who've lost children, people with cancer. Like it's a huge, and people with disabilities as well. Yeah. So I do not respond to people who just come and say hi to me.
Okay.
You have to give me context for me to respond to you.
So you need a chat GPT written
Yeah,
welcome email. But how do you balance it in your own system after doing such heavy conversations? Because supporting people, listening to them could be quite tiring.
Like maybe because I was always the agony aunt. It comes kind of.
You were always like
I
that?
was always the agony aunt. Like I
I
always.
thought you were always a party.
I am a party person, but I'm also someone that people usually come and tell me their problems to. Like in Tamil we say Natame. You know what a Natame is? Natame is the village head who kind of sits
Acha,
in
sarpanch.
Sarpanch dispute resolution. So I think I kind of people kind of tend to talk to me. I have a way of attracting people with trauma, I feel. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but yeah.
So can I ask you a message for the world or to a particular community?
Peace.
Huh?
Peace.
Peace. Okay. Can you give some fashion tips? Some fashion tips, please.
Fashion tips
Shalini.
for sure. I
Yes.
think looking homeless is very important. So my go-to comfort spot is looking homeless. Like I am one of, and my friends would agree with me. I would wear, for me, comfort is more important than anything else. So I would wear whatever and I don't really care. I think I have become well-dressed after my disability and after having to go up on stage, and because my friends kind of torture the life out of me and they want me to look good. And I've also been lucky that two of my friends run boutiques, have run boutiques and all of that. So they insist on getting great clothes done
So
for
are
me.
you the sampler? So they
No,
test
I
out
think
on you?
no. I feel in retrospective, I feel वो खुद का अपना business चलाना चाहते हैं. मैं बकरा बन गई थी. So I think it's just that they don't give me discounts on stitching or nothing like that. They take me to the most expensive place and make me buy the most expensive materials. So if I'm well put, I think it's clearly because of the fact that I have good friendships and I have women in my life with great taste.
Awesome. Shalini, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
all
very
the
much.
laughter, energy, and keep smiling, keep inspiring.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.